make decisions that you realize weren't the best ones to make, like letting your flood insurance go. But if government was paying attention, if leadership was paying attention to what are the chronic challenges of your community, maybe less people would have to spend on flood insurance. I mean, it's a thought. And so that's an important part. And then housing, in my opinion, should have the highest priority as it relates to the recovery dollars for every family in the community. And then I've been talking quite a bit about the bond elections. There's a lot of community meetings like this taking place. There was one last night in LaPorte. I was told that there was more staff than there was community attending this. That is very, very concerning to me, because when the community doesn't participate, as I mentioned earlier, someone else will make your decisions for you. And then industry, we must fund its fair share for flood protection. Look, as I mentioned last night in a separate conversation, I am proud to say that one of the strongest economic sectors that we have in this community is the oil and gas sector. It's provided some jobs. It's doing a lot of good, obviously, for our country. But when we have a conversation about the Ike Dike or the coastal spine, that conversation isn't necessarily for you and I. That conversation is about how to protect the oil and gas industry that's along the ship channel. And you know what? We ought to protect them, because I don't want to see those industries leave our community. But why should you and I flip the entire bill? I think we ought to make them partners in this conversation.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then a very important one is that if you recall, Governor Abbott suspended the pollution regulations for several months, and yet that was quiet. Al, I know that doesn't sit well with you, because you're fighting against pollution and contamination. But where was leadership? Why wasn't anyone saying, my community is already seriously affected by the emissions? I mean, I was at the park last night, very close to the Valero plant, and you could just sit there and smell what was in the air, or that there was something in the air. It doesn't smell like it does here. Very, very different. And so I think we need to make sure that we are bringing people to the table to create collaboration and partnerships. We're not trying to make anybody an enemy, but we're trying to make sure that we're being thoughtful about how this should work well with industry. And then we should be building resiliency. Public education about the need for flood insurance for those that are in some of the most chronic areas. Have that conversation, making so that you and your family can be well protected, realizing that if you're buying flood insurance in an area that's never flooded, it's going to be very cheaper than an area that has had some experiences with it. So it's an important conversation to have. And then we also have to be talking about the reforms to property tax appeals process after having a flooding event. And the reason I say that is because, once again, my brother, who's a property tax expert, will share with you, your property tax obligation is assessed in January. In January. It's not assessed after a catastrophic event. You have to go through an appeal process. The onus is on you. You have to go through the work to say, wait a minute, I've had $30, $40, $50, $80,000 worth of damage. Can we rethink my property taxes? Because your dollar amount is assessed on day one, or not day one, but it's assessed early in the year in January. And then if we have something happening during the rest of the year, then you have to think about it, get down to the appraisal district, file your protest.